Hello everybody. Today we are going to be making the medium size zippered boxy pouch. And this is going to be the little tutorial. For the medium size, you will need 2 pieces of your outer fabric cut 11 by 8 inches, 2 lining pieces cut to the same width, and then 1 piece of 2.5 by 8 inches. This is going to be your handle for the bag. You'll also want a 14-inch zipper. You don't want to do anything less than a 14-inch, but more is okay because we'll just trim off the excess in the end. You will also need thread. You have the option to use an interfacing on this. I would recommend a fusible fleece or something of that nature. You could also use a sew-in, but a sew-in you're going to need to quilt it to your material. I am not going to show you how to do either of those. This one is going to be just for the pouch itself. The steps are the exact same if you were to add the interfacing. I'm just choosing not to do that today. Some other good tools, of course, you're going to want your fabric scissors to be able to trim ends and stuff like that. I also would recommend some wonder clips to keep your pieces out of the way. You also are going to want a tool to be able to make marks with. I personally really like the erasable pens. This one is it's called a friction pen. If you use your iron, it will remove the marks for you, so you're not having to try to use the eraser or anything like that. I also would recommend a seam gauge or a smaller ruler. Seam gauges are really nice for small things like what we're going to do today, so that is also recommended. You will need an iron and an ironing board or a felt mat. You'll also want something to poke the ends out when we turn it right side out. So I like to use chopsticks, but something that has a blunt end that's not super sharp. You don't want to use like scissors or a pen. You have the potential of poking out the corner, poking through the stitches, where we just want this to be nice and smooth. So I do recommend that as well. If you are using the fusible fleece of some sort or a fusible interfacing, you'll want to adhere that to the wrong side, so the back side of your outer fabric. If you're unfamiliar with what the wrong side is, the pretty side is your right side. The back, where it's not as pretty, is your wrong side. So you would want to adhere the interfacing to the back of this before you get started. And then if you are ironing, you will also want to iron your handle strap while you're over at the iron. However, I'm not, so I'm going to show you another way to do it with this that is called a seam roller. So here is your 2.5 by 8 inch. You are going to fold that directly in half, and then this is where you would press it with the iron. As I said, I don't have my iron out right now, so I'm just going to use my seam roller. In my opinion, I feel this is going to give me just as good of a finish as I was looking for with an iron. You are going to open it up so you have that nice crease down the center. We are now going to take these ends and we're going to fold them to that center crease here. And again, if you're using your iron, you would press it here again. But again, I am using the seam roller. So you are going to press this down like this. And then you'll repeat it on the other side. And again, ironing it is just fine. Alrighty, so I have the other side folded in like I just showed you. We're now going to fold it all in half. And that's going to put those raw edges of the material on all the way on the inside. And we're going to go ahead and go over all of this. Again, your iron is perfectly fine and what is recommended. I am just using the seam roller today for this process. So now you have this strap, and in a few steps we will go ahead and stitch down the sides to secure this, but for now just set it to the side. If you are following along with the written instructions, we are now going to start with step number 3. The reason we're starting with step number 3 again is because I don't have that fusible interfacing. In the first 2 steps, just explain that along with ironing out that handle piece for you there. So we are now going to sandwich our material together. So this, when we are referring to the right side of your zipper, it's going to be the side that the zipper pull is on top of, and the bottom here where the zipper pull, you know, is not on the top, this is the wrong side. So again, when you are doing this and we're talking about the right side of the zipper, it is a side with the zipper pull. So go ahead and lay that down on your surface. Correction. I'm going to have you lay down your outside fabric with the right side up. Again, this is the wrong side. It's not as pretty on the back. So we are doing this with the right side up on the table. We are then going to put this right side down. So we want the right sides of this material to be lined up with the top of the zipper and the top of the fabric like that. So the right side of the zipper and the right side of the outer fabric are touching. We are then going to put the right side of our lining material. So for this one's darker on one side, lighter on the other. This lighter side is the wrong side of this material, and this is the right side. So we're now going to put the right side right on top of this to make a little zipper sandwich. Make sure you're lining up the fabric on all sides, plus up here at top with the zipper. And so we have the right side of our outer fabric. This is the right side of the zipper. Those are lined up at the top. And then this is the right side of our lining fabric against the wrong side of the zipper, but the right sides of our fabrics are facing each other. We are now going to just clip along the edge, again making sure that it's all lined up. Take your time. It is super important that these are lined up accurately. And then we are just going to clip our way down till we get to the end. I should have mentioned that the fabric, we want to make sure we're doing the 11-inch, not the 8-inch. So you do want it to go the long way to make sure that it is set up properly. Otherwise, you're going to get a really short but tall item, and it'll still work. It's just not going to be exactly what you are probably looking for with the completion of this tutorial. So now that we have all of our clips at the top and everything is clipped into place, we are now going to make a 1/2-inch mark on the ends of both of our material. This is where we are going to stop and start our stitching. Just a second here. So I like using the seam gauge, if I can get it to focus. So on the top we have our inches. It is not wanting to focus for you guys. Maybe. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is actually a 6-inch seam gauge because 6 inches will be right at the end. So you can take your marker, I don't know what this would be called, but and set it right to that 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to go in here. I'm going to remove that one clip. There we go. And then I'm going to line up that 1/2 inch right with the edge of my material. If you can see how I have that set right on the edge there. And then we're just going to mark that. You could also use chalk. You could use a water-soluble pen. Those you just spritz with a little bit of water in the end to remove. So now we have this 1/2 inch mark, and this is where we are going to start and stop our sewing. We aren't going all the way to the ends, and we are going to go ahead and repeat that on the other side. So before we start sewing, we are going to want to attach our zipper foot. For brother, zipper foot is generally letter I, which is right up here. Again, for some reason, I cannot get this to focus well for you guys, and I'm so sorry. It is my first time doing a video, but anyways, it has a mark on each side for the needle. This zipper foot allows you to get super close to the zipper for zipper projects, so it is super nice to use and have. However, you absolutely can use your regular sewing foot. For brother, it is the J foot. You just want to make sure you get as close to the zipper without touching the teeth. Alrighty, so you can kind of see my blue line right in there. That is where we are going to start. And see, with the zipper foot, this is our zipper right here. It lets you get nice and close. The biggest thing when you're sewing that I can recommend is starting your project with your needle down before you start touching the presser foot. On my Brother machine, this here is needle down or up. Machines, you may just have to hand crank the dial. The biggest thing I can tell you is make sure that you are cranking towards you on any machine. The dial should always come towards you. That is the motion that the machine naturally goes in when sewing. And now we are going to stitch all the way down as straight as possible, making sure that we back stitch at the beginning and the end to lock those stitches. On my machine, it's this arrow here. Your machine should have some way to do it as well. And go as fast as you are comfortable. There's no race in this, so go nice and slow until you're comfortable and picking up speed. Sometimes I like to grab the back of my project with my other hand just to kind of keep everything going through smoothly and straight, especially when I have several layers like this. Alright, we are getting close to that other blue line. If you can see right here at my finger, so I'm just going to take my time getting there, making sure that I stop on it, and then back stitch as well to lock those stitches in. Okay, I think that is, I can go one stitch forward. Alright. Alright, so I did that. Okay, so now we have that sewn all the way down, and like I said, I took my time and I made sure I stayed as straight as possible. Now granted, this comes with the experience of many years of sewing, of getting that nice straight line, but like I said, my best recommendation is just to go nice and slow. We make sure to trim your threads. This is super important. This makes sure that it doesn't get caught up in your machine when you're doing other stitches, so always trim your threads in between each step. Make sure you have sharp scissors. These are not, oh my goodness. I have to go get these sharpened. Okay, now that our threads are all clipped, we are going to flip this, open this up. So now we have it like this. So we have that right side of that zipper again. See our zipper, the pretty side of our fabric is showing there, and the pretty side shows on the back. Now we want to pull this all nice and taut. You're going to go over to your iron and you are going to iron this down flat. Once you have it all lined up nicely, you can see at the bottom here I'm not quite lined up, so that means I needed to pull that a little bit more. I like to kind of finger press it a little bit just to get it how I want it before taking it over to my iron, and then give that a nice solid press to get it nice crisp, because we are then going to have to go across this and top stitch it. So just a moment. I am finding that I am going to have to rewrite the pattern that some of you currently have, the ones that attended my class last week here, September of 2025. I don't know how many other people will see this video, so just to clarify, because I personally like to top stitch at this point, and I see that the instructions actually have you wait and they have you put on your other foot and stuff like that. I don't like that, so I apologize to those that were in my class. If you weren't in my class, just ignore this little bit of rambling, but at this time we are going to take this piece over and we are going to top stitch as close to this edge as we can. And then we will go ahead and repeat for this side of the material. Real quick, I did forget to mention, you're going to want to mark that 1/2 inch. It's hard to see on the camera, but I have a mark here and I have a mark here for your start and stop again. So that is super important. Make sure that you do mark your material that 1/2 inch for your start and stop. Okay, so I have my needle down in my work. I'm starting at that 1/2 inch line, and like I said, we are just going to sew as close to the top as we can. Now, if you're not able to sew quite as close as I am, that is totally okay. Again, this comes with years of experience that I'm getting this, what would be considered a scant seam allowance, but it is not at all necessary. If you want to try to go for like a 1/4 inch, that is totally fine. So I just did that very, very thin seam allowance here at the top. There is a part right here where I did kind of go off track, so just to show you, it is totally okay. You can see on the back where I did that a little bit. Alright, so now we are going to repeat the steps, but on the other side. So I have the right sides of my outer fabric. I have here the right side of the zipper, because the zipper pull is here. So we are going to place that face down. I'm going to flip mine over at the moment to just kind of help line up the material better, because you want to make sure that you are lining it up with the material that we've already sewn on there, along with lining it up at the top of the material. And now that I have that on here, we are going to take, again, this is the right side of my lining fabric, so we are going to face that down. So now it's going to be right side of lining with the right side of that lining fabric. And again, we are going to make that sandwich of the zipper here. So we have our outside fabric on the bottom, our zipper in the middle, and this here. Again, make sure that the right side of the zipper is against the right side of the outer fabric, and then you are just going to clip all the way down again. Alright, so we have it clipped all the way along the top. We are now going to go ahead and grab our seam gauge or the ruler that you're using, and however you are marking it, and we are going to make sure that we do that 1/2 inch again. It'll all make sense why we're doing this 1/2 inch in a moment if you haven't made one of these before. Those that attended my class, some of you learned and saw why it was so important. Otherwise it ends up puckering your bag when we're all done, and it's just no fun. Alrighty, so we have the 1/2 inch mark there, and all the way on this end. It's going to be our start and stop point. Alright, my needle is down, and I'm going to go ahead and back stitch at the beginning here. And if you aren't familiar with what back stitching is, you just want to go forward 2, 3, maybe 4 stitches, go back 2, 3, maybe 4 stitches, and that just locks your stitches in place. My philosophy is sewing is not that serious, but there are a few things that are pretty important to make sure to always do. Okay, so I start and I stopped at those marks there. We are now going to open this up again like we did on the other side. You're going to pull it nice and tight and make sure that you get it all lined up. Go over to your ironing mat and iron this nice and flat. Helps just to get a nice crisp seam, so that way we can go over, and we are going to top stitch this side as well. I did forget to mention, make sure you're doing your 1/2 inch line for start and stop with the top stitching as we did on the other side. Make sure you do it for this side before you start top stitching. I know it's hard to see, but now we have both sides top stitch. You can see it there and there on the material. So now I'll go ahead and just set this off to the side just for a moment and grab that piece that we ironed in the beginning. This is your handle piece, and we're going to take this over to the machine, and we are going to run a stitch with your regular foot put back on. We are all done with our zipper foot, so you can go ahead and just put that one away. But now we are going to run a stitch down the edge here and down the edge on this side. You want it to be about 1/4 of an inch or so, maybe 1/8 of an inch, pretty close to the edge, as close to either edge as you are comfortable. Okay, so we got the first side done. This is the side that we started with, because so we just want to flip this and put the same side in as we did to start the other side. You don't want to take it, get down to the bottom, and then just flip it and put it back up. You'll actually end up with a twisted, warped item. So you always want to start, when you're sewing multiple lines, you always want to go in the same direction. And then you're going to sew all the way down. Alrighty, so the finished product looks something like this, just 2 straight lines. Now go ahead and set this just off to the side for right now. Grab the right sides of your outer fabric, and these like this. You're going to make a little sandwich. Now pin the pieces or clip your outer fabric. Make sure it's all lined up nice and neat like this. Both sides, line it all the way up, and we're actually going to stitch all the way across the whole bottom. The entire bottom you're going to stitch with a 1/4 inch, I believe. Let me double check. So you're going to sew all the way down, but you're going to want a 1/2 inch seam allowance. If you're not sure what a 1/2 inch is, you can always use the seam gauge like we did earlier and line it up on your machine and see where your needle placement is. You also, if it makes you more comfortable, you could draw a line all the way down at that 1/2 inch, so that way you're sewing on that line. That's a great tip for like new beginner sewers. Even seasoned sewers will do it, but so yeah, just make sure you line up that 1/2 inch. I'm actually going to adjust mine over a little bit. I think I like this better for that 1/2 inch. Yep, now I have myself situated, and like I said, we're going to start at the very end, so all the way down. Make sure you're back stitching at the beginning and the end of it. Start with your needle down. Alright, we're almost to the end of this one here. I would recommend clipping it, especially if you're just starting. I know I didn't, but I would recommend it. It just helps keep your material in place. One less thing you have to think about. Back stitch. Alrighty, so then on your lining piece, we're going to do almost the same thing, but for this one, because this is what we are going to use to turn our item right side out, we do actually want to leave a 3 to 4 inch gap somewhere along the middle of the bottom. It doesn't have to be like perfectly in the middle, but you don't want it like on one end or the other, because you want to get those sides secured. You just want to do it somewhere in the middle, but again, it does not have to be perfect. So use your pen of choice and mark it. I'm going to mark mine at the 3.5 mark. So I'm going to do one right there and one mark down here. And that's going to give me 3.5 inches to work with. The reason we're keeping this open is we're going to have to turn our project right side out, and when we turn our project right side out, we have to make sure that we have a spot to do that. So now we're going to sew from this end to the line, back stitching at both places, and then we're going to start here again, back stitching, and then ending here again, back stitching. So it looks a little something like this. Needle down, back stitching, now we're going to sew, All right, I'm at that mark, so I'm going to again go back stitch and forward and lock it. Now you could take it, snip your ends, and then like restart, but I'm gonna just pull the thread forward, and then I'm gonna find that other mark that I have here, and I'm gonna get started again. Needle down, forward, back stitch, all the way to the end. Again, back stitching. And then once you clip your threads, it'll look something like, so once you clip your ends, it looks something like this, where we have sewn, stopped, left this gap, and then started again and gone all the way down. We are now going to make this tube-like, is how I call it, what I would consider. So you're gonna get your fingers on the insides of the lining and the outer fabric with the zipper in the center, and you're gonna kind of try to sandwich it all together. We're gonna line up our seams, so the seam of the outer with that zipper, or sorry, that is the lining, and with the outer, and make this flat little sandwich. Take your time, make sure you get it all lined up. It's kind of awkward trying to record this. But just take your time. Oops. Just take your time moving things around. My bottom's all rolled up on itself. Make sure you get it all lined up good. So a little bit off here in the center. I'm kind of bunched up over here. I see. Okay. Alright, this is looking pretty close. We just need to roll it all this way a little bit. Just a moment. That was hard to do while recording, but now I have my seam here is lined up with a zipper, and then my seam on the bottom, which is right here, is also lined up with that zipper. Now take this over to your sewing mat, and you are going to take these seams and you are going to open them up like this. You want them nice and flat. That's going to help debulk it for you when we get this product finished. We are in the home stretch here. So again, just go over to your ironing mat and iron this seam open and flat, and do the same thing for the other side of the material. Alright, so I've done it, ironed it for both sides of the material. Oops. So this is our lining fabric. Now that hole is still right here in there, but you do want to press this open like that. And then we're ready for the next step. And this is when it all like really starts to come together. Okay, for the next step, we need to clip this lining material out of the way. So this is why it was so important to have that 1/2 inch start stop, because this is going to be what gives us the room and the ability to do this without sewing the other material. So what I do is I just fold it up in a triangle like this, and I clip it at the top, because when I go to sew, I can always move this little itty bit out of the way. Just make sure that you don't sew that. We are now going to grab this piece, our handle, and we are going to set this inside of our bag. And what I do is I set it inside the bag on either side of the hem, or of the seam, excuse me, making sure that I have it pulled straight. You could, if you wanted to, offset it like this. I actually think I might do that with this one, give it a little bit bigger of a pull. The big thing is line it up and then add some clips to it. So we want to clip this in place like that, and then this one as well, like this. And then when we sew, that will be included in our bag now. And then now we need to take and mark 3/8 of an inch, which on my seam gauge is that. And we are going to make marks all the way down. You could do one solid line all the way down if you want to grab your other ruler to connect all the pieces together, but you do want to go all the way down. This is going to be what we sew on. This is our sewing allowance. So like we've done 1/2 inch, I've talked about 1/4 inch. This is going to be 3/8 of an inch. And again, it's nice having the visual reminders and something to follow as you're sewing. Okay, I know it's kind of hard to see on camera, but I do have my marks all the way down my bag. Again, it's going to come real close to this material because this one I must have gone just a little bit too close. I'm just going to make sure that I don't get that when I do it. When we get to our zipper, we want to sew over this back and forth 3 or 4 times just to really lock that zipper into place. So we are going to sew all the way down, starting and stopping, or back stitching at the beginning and the end, and along that 3/8 line. Only do it for this side without the pull tab where we put our handle. I can feel my handles right here that I just sewed over, so I am going to go over that just a couple times. That one's not as serious, but just to really lock in my handle. Now I'm getting to the zipper. Alright, I went over that 2.5 times, so 3 times forward, 2 times backwards. So it should look something like this on this end. And again, I did not get my lining fabric. It was close, but I did not. Now take a non-fabric scissors. Take non-fabric scissors and you're going to cut this. Now if you're using a metal zipper, make sure that you're looking where the teeth are so you aren't like breaking your scissors, but I like to use the plastic ones for these projects. So now I like to, and as you can see, I cut it just a touch shorter than my project, but do that. Now we're going to come to this side. We can unclip the lining there. We're going to clip this lining. Ooh, I gotta cut that out of my way. Clip this lining up and out of our way. Again, just doing that little triangle here. And then on this one, it's super important that you get your zipper up and about the middle of your project. And then come back here and clip your zipper tab like this, just to keep it as close together as possible right there. Now mark your 3/8 line all the way down again, and then we're going to sew again going back and forth over this, and then my zipper is halfway into my bag right there. Alright, so I have my marks all the way down. When I get to the zipper, I'm going to make sure that I do pull these pieces of my lining out of the way, because again, you do not want to sew your lining right now. We're going to sew all the way down, starting and stopping the top and bottom, and going back and forth over this zipper a few times. For some reason my zipper tab was pulling apart, so I just got myself realigned with that. Make sure that that zipper's together as you go over and you go back. Now that one I did do a couple more times, but about the same as last time. Same process as last time. Again, using non-fabric scissors, we are going to cut this flush with our project, with our fabric, I mean. Now, admittedly, I don't think I got my zipper tab as close together, oops, as I would have preferred. Oh, it's not too bad. But if you can get it closer, that'd probably be a little bit better, but it will still work just fine. And again, I just went over that multiple times without getting this in the way. And now we are going to do the same, but for the lining. The lining is a little bit easier because now we are going to flip our outer fabric up and out of the way. And then this one, now for the lining fabric, this is actually only going to be 1/4 of an inch from the edge. So you want to take your material, make sure that your zipper's out of the way, and your other material's out of the way, and we are going to line this up and sew 1/4 inch down. Again, make your marks if you need, or like a straight line. I know my 1/4 inch, so I'm not going to, but it is encouraged. Again, I'll be starting and stop, or not starting and stopping, I'll be back stitching at the beginning and end when I start and stop. And I'm going to pull the other fabric out of my way. And like right now, it's getting caught up on my zipper bulk right here. So what we're going to do is just kind of pull that out of the way, making sure that our needle always stays in our project, but you can lift up your presser foot to wiggle things around if needed. Alright, so that's that 1/4 inch here. Make sure to trim my threads. And then we are going to do the same thing on this side. Alright, so I finished that side, got that 1/4 inch. Now we have to measure in 1 3/4 of an inch from out here. Make a top line. We're going to make a 1 3/4 inch square, so let's do it this way. So I'm going to mark it here, and then we are going to mark it up. Okay, so now we have our mark here. This goes down. And then this goes down where our 2 lines intersected there. And that makes us a little square, and we are going to cut out this square for all 8 pieces, so all 4 corners. To be the most precise, you would do this to each corner individually, so all 8 corners. I am doing it together like that, and then go ahead and repeat on the other 3 sides. Alrighty. Now we have that cut out of each of them. So we're going to go to all 8 corners, because we have to do this, we do have to do 1 by 1. You're going to pull this as straight as possible. I see that mine's not quite perfect, and that's okay. You're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each of these, pulling these straight. So again, open it up and pull and twist with your fingers, and see how this one's a lot more even. You're going to just go across there with that 1/4 inch seam allowance on all 8 corners. So again, getting them lined up, you could absolutely clip or pin the fabric to keep it in place for you. Make sure you're back stitching at the beginning and the end. If you can, open up seams. Just helps reduce bulk. So you get something like this, and you gotta repeat on all the 8 corners. All right, once you're done, make sure you go through and you get all of your threads clipped. If you miss a couple at this point, it's not the end of the world, but you will have a much prettier project if you get your ends clipped. But you will end up with this shape that's kind of just crazy. You're gonna find the lining, and you're gonna reach your hand in, and you're gonna go all the way up to where your zipper is on the inside. So I always like to find the zipper, and then you're gonna start pulling your project right side out. Now this is still going to be inside out because we have to flip it all the way around. Go ahead and pull. There's your handle. Open up that zipper all the way. I like to just kind of use my fingers, get everything poked where it belongs. You could also use that chopstick or another turning tool as recommended, or as personal preference. So now we have a boxy bag. We just need to go in and we need to close up this hole. So since you press that seam open, it should have a nice seam or a nice like press already. You just pull it like this, and then you're going to make sure to start sewing just before and then finish sewing just after that hole, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and end again. Make sure that you keep your material all nice and together, and you do want to try to sew as close to the edge as you possibly can, just for a nice finished look. When you finish sewing, take it out, and then I like to pull on the lining to make sure that I did get all of the opening, and I did. And there you have it. You have your finished boxy bag with the handle, and since I staggered that, it's a little bit wider of a handle. If you can play with it, you could make this a shorter handle. You could make your strap wider if you wanted. You could, you know, make it a whole lot shorter like that, or have it like this, or you can omit it completely. It's not a necessary item in my opinion. Again, if you would have had that interfacing in there, this would be a lot more structured, but again, it's not necessary. Now, this medium size is great as like a pencil bag. I like putting sewing materials inside of it like that. I just went ahead and put some stuffing inside of it just to show it off a little bit more, but these make great toiletry bags. They make great pencil bags, the smaller size even for kids in school. The zipper nice and wide, go all the way across, and it's that nice finished seam on the inside. The seams are all tucked and encased, so they're nice and finished. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. This is my first one, so thank you for your patience as I learn how to do this. I do plan to do these more for other kits that I will be selling. If you have any questions, please send me a message on any platform, so that way I can help you, and I can always do correction videos. So there you have it. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining me.